I'm Debbie Travis.
And I'm Tommy Smythe.
And this is Trust Me, I'm a Decorator. So Tommy and I are actually sitting together.
We are.
Tommy's with me in Tuscany. So he's sitting on my knee, curling my hair.
Me adjacent.
And it is the evening, so we're having a little gin and tonic.
We are.
So we might
Cheers, Tommy.
So we thought we'd give you an update.
Yes.
You may or may not know that we just did a cruise. I still find it hard to say the word cruise because I'm not a cruise person.
Well, you weren't a cruise person, but now you are technically a cruise person because you've been on a cruise.
I did. Well, it's kind of not quite a cruise. It's a boat, and it's like a floating barge. And
it's like a floating buffet.
it's a boat. Oh, my God.
The food was amazing.
So we're going to answer, we had quite a few questions, and we're also going to give some ideas. If you ever want to go to Eastern Europe or Vienna, we actually went to some rather cool places.
We did.
So we met up in Budapest. So I flew from Rome and Tommy flew from North America, right?
I did. I flew from Canada, straight from Toronto.
Yeah. And then we get on this boat. And, it's like anything where it's all a bit new and a bit strange.
It was doubly new for you because you had never been on a cruise, but also never been to the individual destinations that you were going to on the cruise.
No. And you arrive at this boat and it's a barge. It's not like what you see, these big, huge ships out at the sea, which actually I quite liked.
Yes.
And so, I would actually...
small.
Yeah, if you wanted to try this stuff and you'll think, I don't want to go on one of those boats, this is a good thing to do. Things started to go wrong and nothing to do with the company who brought us. I just have to say Scenic cruises were amazing.
Scenic was amazing.
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 But it's me. So so the first thing was I arrived. So I text Tommy. I say, I've got in my cabin. And within minutes, I'd kind of broken everything. So
she pushed a lot of buttons on the heating and cooling system.
Yeah. So women have a habit of pushing everything. I pushed everything. So a young man came, and anyway, by the end of the evening, there was like 15 men, including the captain, in my boat.
Literally,
my room.
I actually came. My room was right down the hall and just across from Debbie's, very close. And she had been texting me all of this information, and I thought, could there really be 7 people in her room? So I left my room and I went to Debbie's room, and sure enough, there were literally 7 men, including the captain, in Debbie's stateroom.
And then men said, well, why are all these towels on the floor? Should we pick them up? And I said, no, you've all got your bloody boots on.
You come in with your boots on and I'm, trying to keep my room clean.
So it's kind of funny. So off we went. We stayed there that night and we met everybody. I think you did a speech. And then the next day we went on our own. We didn't go with the other people into Budapest. But Tommy had an experience which he then told when we did our talk.
We did a little gap.
And hadn't told me.
No.
And it was actually very funny.
I saved it for our live chat with our fellow cruisers. What happened was I went to Budapest 2 days before Debbie arrived because Debbie was coming from a +6 hour time zone and I was coming from, she was already acclimatized. So I come 2 days early, and I had spoken to many friends who had been to Budapest before. And apparently, because of the Moorish influence and all of the Turkish influence in terms of this area of the world being conquered many times, there are very famous hot springs Turkish baths in Budapest, Hungary.
So who knew?
Yes. So I had been told that this was an absolute must, that if you go to Budapest, you must experience the baths. So I only had one day when I could do it, and that was the Tuesday. The Tuesday happened to be men-only day at the Turkish baths. Now, you need to understand about me that I am never nude. Like, I don't take my clothes off ever, unless it's pitch black. And so I had to talk myself into this notion of conquering a fear and actually getting into the mode of doing what people do in this region.
Take their clothes off.
Which is so what happens is you check into this place and you remove all of your clothing and you're given something that is called an apron. This apron is just like a cooking apron that you would use, only it doesn't have the top part. It's just the waistband.
It's a flap.
It's a little flap. It's like a little Tarzan.
Goes over your bits, right?
Like a tea towel that's supposed to go over your bits. And so I'm completely apoplectic. I'm, basically your ass is out in the back and your bits are covered in the front, and that's it. That's all you have on. And so because I knew that it was going to be steamy and everything, and also because I knew that it was going to be full of like really
Huge Hungarians.
Huge Hungarians.
Sweating
hairy,
away.
sweaty Hungarians in this humid environment. I had taken my glasses off. So my glasses were in the locker with my clothes. Here I was in this loincloth. And I went in and there was this beautiful medieval room that is round, that has a huge pool in the middle, and you step down into it. And as I entered the water, of course, the flap, because it floated, lifted all the way up. Completely exposed. My meat and potatoes were floating around in the water. And I was just completely mortified. First of all, there are a million men who look like snails out of their shell. It stinks. Because there's sulfur, I guess, in the water.
Were they sweaty, hairy men?
Sweaty, hairy, big, like
huge stomachs,
great big tummies and flat butts and wrinkles and everything. But then, as I was kind of talking myself into like, now I've done it. I've gotten in the water. My flap rose up. I got embarrassed. I stood up. I was just getting out of the water. And 6 stunningly beautiful Canadian hockey players walk in wearing the little aprons.
That is so funny.
And funk me, I didn't have my glasses on.
And you didn't go, oh, I'm going back in.
No, I almost stayed. And then I thought, no. First of all, they don't.
Hi, my name's Tommy.
They don't want to see this. And I couldn't see that.
Yeah.
So
No.
it was no fun for me, but I could, through the fog and haze of my very bad astigmatism, I could see that there were some quite tight hockey player buns on the premises. So anyway,
You didn't call me.
I did it, and I thought the whole time I was thinking, I'm going to get pink eye, ringworm, athlete's foot, all the things. So I literally went back to the hotel, which was only across the bridge, and I did a Karen Silkwood shower, and
What's that?
like just, that movie where they scrub her down
Oh, okay.
because she's had radiation.
Oh, okay.
So I did that, and then I swear to you, and this is so funny and embarrassing and weird, but I had Purell. I had hand sanitizer, and I put the hand sanitizer on my feet.
Only on your feet?
Yes, only on my
It
feet.
would sting the other bits, right?
Oh, yeah, it was stinging the eyes.
Anyway, so that was the story that one of many that Tommy
Oh, my
told.
God. Eastern Europe in a loincloth.
Yeah. So then we dashed around the market. We didn't have much time, and it was an amazing market.
Yeah.
I didn't see much of Budapest, but then we set sail and we start going down the Danube, which is quite an extraordinary
Very beautiful.
river because it's really just forested either side from day after day. You don't really see. It's not like loads of castles and things like that, like the Rhine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and neither of us expected that.
No, and very unspoilt. But what if you're a virgin in this kind of stuff? What you don't know is that other boats kind of join you, especially at night.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the kind of the shore side.
Right.
But then I liked that because I got the sun in the afternoon. And you have like a kind of balcony thing so I could sit and work or read and get the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But Tommy was on looking across the riverside. So
That's right.
anyway, Tommy came in for breakfast the next morning as white as a sheet and had opened his curtains, and there was another boat identical to ours that was about 3 inches away from our boat.
Yeah.
So close that they can walk over, and they do walk
And
over.
they walked through our lobby.
They walked
of
through
course,
your
to get
lobby.
to the riverbank.
Anyway, Tommy opens his curtains. There's a guy sitting on the can. There's a guy having a shit. I mean, like right next, 3 inches away, So Tommy closes the curtain.
Well, I handed him some loo roll, and then I closed the curtain.
So I had the same experience on my side, but mine were usually people bringing vegetables onto the boat and stuff, and I'm stark naked on the boat. So all these are things you learn as you're kind of going along. So then we get to Vienna.
Yes.
I've never been to Vienna, and I'll go back.
Yeah.
So if nobody's ever been, put this on your bucket list. It is probably one of the, and I've lived in a lot of beautiful cities, one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen.
Agreed.
Ever seen.
Same.
So, of course, the only thing we knew about Vienna was to go and have the Sasha Torte with the big fat chocolate cake,
Which we did.
which we did.
Yeah, I had a vegan one.
Yeah, vegan one. And so we went there, and it's all red velvet, and it's the famous hotel, and they created
Chandeliers, polished metal. Like,
Yeah,
very
and we
pretty.
lined up, didn't we? We queued for not very long, but we got in.
Well, you didn't queue for very long.
Oh no, yeah.
I went ahead.
Yeah, I sent him ahead. So actually it was great. There was no queuing, but Tommy went ahead about 7 hours and camped outside like a
I
concert.
did a little
Yeah.
bit. Well, it was Mother's Day, and I wanted to do something special.
That was very nice, very nice. So we get in and we have this lovely chocolate cake and everything, and we ended up talking quite a lot and having quite a nice time. So then we decide there's so much to see, and it's overwhelming, and the buildings are just, There's nothing dirty, nothing scruffy, nothing.
Oh, you could eat off the sidewalks.
Yeah.
The city is
beautiful. And the vastness of the Austrian Empire. And you like...
The hugeness of the building.
Huge. Absolutely huge. So we're standing there going, well, where do we go? We were complete pathetic tourists. We hadn't done any research. We saw these like, well, okay, imagine a golf cart, but a golf cart built in...
That looks like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes.
Like it did, didn't it?
Yeah.
It looked like you were part of the old school Habsburg, Austrian Empire royalty going around.
Exactly, like royalty. And actually they look really good. Yeah. So the first guy we went to was very rough and was like, no speak English, no, nothing.
It's not friendly.
So we're like, oh God. And he's like, yeah, €100. And we're like, There was a guy, very handsome, waving at us from another one. Mm-hmm. So we go over to him and his price was like a quarter of it.
It was less.
And less. And he says, oh, I'll take you. I'll show, I might speak perfect English and I'll show you everything. So we get in and we ask him his name, which I've forgotten. And then we said, where are you from? And he had these piercings, dark, but piercing blue eyes.
Yes.
So I recognized that. And he said, I'm from Afghanistan. Turns out he's only been there for about a week. So he knew absolutely nothing. So,
I mean, we thought he knew a lot.
But he didn't.
He told us a lot of information.
But it was all wrong.
We didn't find out till later.
Yeah, so he pointed things. Oh, that's the Grand Palace. Well, it was actually the market. Then he pointed this and that. So I had heard that the great famous National Gallery, National Library was something to go and see. Mm-hmm. So when he pointed it out, I said to Tommy, we really, really need to go and see this library.
And I was so grateful too, because it was good.
Yeah, and then we had a bit of an experience because it wasn't the library. It was like the local toilet.
It was a completely different building.
Yeah.
And it was like a tourist information center or something.
Yeah, we toilet.
And they gave us a little map and we looked at the map and realized that we were quite far from it.
Yeah, we were miles away. Yeah. Anyway, we find the library and so this is what happened.
Yeah, Debbie goes rushing up the stairs past the ticket counter.
Yeah, because I'm very impatient. Like, come on, Tommy.
And I said, Debbie, there's a ticket counter there. I think we need to.
Well, we didn't want the boat to go without us, but I wanted to see it. Anyway, there was a ticket counter and there was maybe 20 people standing in the queue.
Yes.
So we get there and Tommy said, we have to get a ticket. I thought it was ridiculous.
She said, you don't have to buy a ticket to a library.
Yes.
Libraries are free.
Exactly. Follow me. So we go up these...
They should be
800-year-old steps, beautiful kind of stone steps. Oh, yes. We get to the top, and there's the entrance to the. Obviously, people are going in and out, and there's a man on the door, and he's about 110, and obviously a volunteer, wonderful old man, looked very Austrian,
very dignified,
very dignified. He had the big mustache and everything, and so I just walked right past him. So Tommy, who honestly, I have to say, Tommy is so pathetically correct. All the time.
I'm a rule follower.
You're a rule follower and I'm a rule breaker, so we would never marry.
Oh my goodness, it would be terrible. At least if we did marry, you'd be in jail and I would be out of jail, able to bail you out.
Would you visit me?
Of course. Yeah. I'd have to go and bail you out.
You're such a liar. Anyway, so I go in, I just walk right past this man who then swivels and immediately Tommy's going, okay, I'll try. And of course he grabs Tommy and he says, where's your ticket?
Yeah.
In a very Austrian, tough kind of way. So Tommy goes bright red and I'm now hiding in the library.
And I lied and said like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we needed tickets, even though I knew that we needed tickets. But Debbie had said, forget the tickets.
So he's now miming it to me from the top of the stairs and I'm like peering, out of this doorway to him.
But Debbie's also moving like 12 inches further into the room, 12 inches further into the room, just in little increments as though she's meant to be there.
Just so you know, it was 20 euros each to go in and I wasn't going to waste 20 euros. Anyway, so...
You didn't.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm in.
By the time I went downstairs, purchased the tickets, 2 tickets, and came back upstairs, I looked at my phone finally, and there had been 3 missed calls, and at least 9. At least 8 text messages, maybe 9. Could have been 9.
Do not buy me a ticket. I'm in.
I've done
it. I'm in. I've broken into the Austrian library.
Buy one ticket, Tommy. Buy one ticket.
Just buy one ticket, And then I thought, well, maybe he didn't get my messages. I'll ring him. I'll call him. So I get the phone out. Well, it's a no-no in a local village library. Never mind in one of the greatest libraries in the world.
Yeah.
And of course, then I was attacked by 4 8-year-olds saying, please put that phone away. Please, you do not use our phone. It's this library. Very good Austrian accent, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so then Tommy appears and going, I got 2 tickets. I'm telling you, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you were actually genuinely mad at me.
Yeah, you just threw away $20. But the library. So if you say, okay, I would like to go to Vienna, this library is not a library where you're going to go and take the local Harold Robbins book out.
No.
It is. It's where Chopin wrote, where
it was
Einstein went, where all these
incredible
great people worked, and it is the ceiling went on and on and on. Yeah. Oh, it was magnificent.
It was really one of the most beautiful rooms of any kind, library or not, that I've ever stood.
Yeah, and you can take pictures and all that. Anyway, so we did that, and then that evening. The boat, Scenic, had created an evening at a concert.
Oh, that's right.
And
in a palace.
It was in a palace, and it was absolutely beautiful. So when we arrived, there was this beautiful, it was one of 4 palaces owned by the Liechtensteins, right?
It was the Liechtenstein Palace.
Yeah.
And that's the small principality, the very small country.
Who have a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah. Sort of like Monaco, I guess. And it was just incredibly beautiful. It had just undergone...
And they had a coach in the middle. Oh, my God.
It had just undergone a renovation. They had a gold carriage.
It made the Queen's gold carriage look like, an old Fiat,
like
an old
Toyota
banger,
Camry.
Toyota Camry. Because this, so we had lots of fun taking pictures in front of that because there were ropes around us, and even I didn't climb over the rope. So then we go...
Although I'm sure you thought about it.
I did. Anyway, we go into the concert, and what was very nice, which I liked, is everybody dressed up. So it wasn't the whole boat, but there was maybe 100 people went. Mm-hmm. Anyway, people wore dinner jackets and put on a nice dress.
It was very sophisticated.
It was beautiful. But what was amazing was the ceiling was all these Renaissance figurines, very much like the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, gorgeous.
But whereas the Sistine Chapel, you're rushed through, so you don't really get time. Here, you were in this beautiful place listening to this fabulous music, and you could sit and stare at this. So Tommy and I had a blazing row because we sat at the back. And the reason we sat at the back was somebody in charge on the boat said, don't sit at the front because they get you up at the end to have a waltz.
To waltz,
well, yes. I thought, I'm not waltzing with him.
And I'm not waltzing.
Yeah. So we sat at the back so we wouldn't be chosen.
Literally in the last row.
So we're listening to the concert, whispering to each other about whether the ceiling, because it was kind of a lot of trompe-l'oeil, trick of the eye.
Like a domed ceiling.
It looked like a domed ceiling with giants looking down on you and people having fights and people in loincloths and children being beheaded and all these kind of, Renaissance pictures. It was completely flat, we found out after.
And I couldn't believe it. I almost refused to believe it.
Yeah, you couldn't. And also, what I was trying to explain to Tommy during the concert with people turning around going, shh, can you be quiet? Shh, was that the pillars that are high up, so the pillars, I said, are the real marble because they were holding up the building. But around the top, very much like the Sistine Chapel, is trompe-l'oeil, which was my great love, many, many years ago. And so it means it was fake. It was painted. And they did this on the Sistine Chapel because stone is too heavy to put on a ceiling. Yeah. So in the Renaissance, they painted it. And these are the people inspired me. So everybody leaves, and I'm still staring up at this magnificent ceiling, and we're still having this argument about whether it was flat and whether it was trompe-l'oeil and whether the pillars were real.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, were the pillars real marble? So I walk over, say, come on, follow me. And I'm touching the pillars, and this guy came out with virtual handcuffs going, get your hands off the pillars now.
He told Debbie not to touch the marble, and then he turned around and walked away. And what do you think she did? She touched it again.
It's marble. I mean, seriously, it's marble. Anyway, so that was really great. And then
what I think is so lovely about that, I have to say, is that it's so funny to me how you're so famous for, being so incredibly good at faux finishing and painting and all those things. It was the beginning of your career. Before you became an author, before all of that stuff, it started with paint. And I think it's so amazing and actually quite beautiful that here you are in this, place and everything. And one of the things that you noticed, because you are passionate about it, was that there was this very well executed faux finishing. And I thought, Jesus Christ, of course you're going to be sitting here with Debbie Travis and she's going to notice that and point it out. I thought it was quite thrilling for me, actually.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Sarah Burke, and I host the Women in Media podcast, where I'm exploring the challenges women face in the media spotlight and celebrating our triumphs. My guests come from radio, TV, news, and sports, and we'll cover topics like leadership, diversity, stereotypes, and more. Most of all, I'm looking to build a community through a space where we can discuss anything. The Women in Media podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at womeninmedia.ca.
So I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful day. And then, you know, we basically sailed slowly. You know, all these people got off and they went off and saw castles. And you went on one trip. I didn't. I just
We left Vienna.
You went to see a princess, right?
I did. But before we do that, I want to go back to the Rose Garden.
Do
you remember the Rose Garden, Debbie?
Yeah. So in the middle of Vienna, they have one of the world's, near the palace, they have one of the world's most exquisite rose gardens with roses that are hundreds of years old.
And like 1,000 different varieties.
Yeah, some of the roses were actually bigger than Tommy's head.
Yeah.
They were absolutely gorgeous. So we were, look at these, this is lovely. We should take some pictures. Let's do an Instagram. So in the middle of the rose garden, there was concertos going on, people playing.
Yes, there was.
People just behaving so beautifully, little picnics going on, people on the flute. I mean, it was really like magical. Anyway, they had this gorgeous archway with these mature roses hanging over the whole
like 200-year-old roses.
Yeah, with a huge thing. Actually, one woman didn't like the story because we told it on the boat. Anyway, a huge branch going over the top. So I said, all right, Tommy, get the camera. We'll do a video. So I said, I'll stand underneath. And I don't know what caused me to do this, but I thought, well, maybe I'll hang.
Just hang off.
Like a monkey,
branch.
I'll hang from the branch
What
above
came
me.
over you that you thought
And
that?
just as I started to get my toes off the ground, it was a terrible creak. I won't say a crack.
It was a crack.
It wasn't a crack.
Creak.
It was a creak. So I didn't break it.
It was like a moan.
But
like,
we actually got it on camera, so it was very, well, we thought it was funny. It was a split second that I didn't pull this entire thing down.
I am telling you.
It's the food on the boat.
And I said in one of my Instagram posts that the next book that I'm going to write is 101 Ways to Get Arrested in Europe with Debbie Travis, because I was certain that if it wasn't the library, sneaking into the library, like sneaking into the movies. When you're
ruining the famous rose garden.
Or ruining the famous rose garden.
But
or touching the marble in the palace. I mean,
it was a beautiful trip. And the highlight for me wasn't Budapest, Vienna, but it was a large, very large man called Marion. And
oh my God, your dear Marion.
So the wonderful thing, which I've never had before, is we all had our own butler.
Oh, this is where Debbie gets hooked on cruising.
Oh my God! So I had a man who came to my cabin when I arrived and introduced himself, and his name was Marion. I have never met
a man named Marion.
I've never met a man called Marion, but it doesn't matter. It's a kind of maybe a East European name.
When I think of the name Marion, do you know who I think about? The actress Marion Ross, who was the mom on Happy Days.
Oh, well, it wasn't that. He was a big East European. Anyway, he was very nice, and so I opened my door, and when I opened my door, his lip quivered, and he said, "I'm your butler," but he couldn't get it out. He just couldn't, and he said, "I'm sorry, but I just adore you. I just adore you. I can't believe it." So I thought he was joking, and this was part of the service of things. Yeah. I'll tell you, I could have asked him to clip my toenails. This man was the nicest man I would marry him.
He was devoted to you.
Wasn't he?
Devoted.
And when he came, if we were having dinner at night, nobody else was allowed to serve me.
Nope.
Marion
came rushing over, even though he was serving other tables over there.
Yeah, and he would put my napkin on, completely ignore everybody else and walk away.
Yeah, he never did it for me. There were 3 other people at the table. Yeah. He never did it for us. He just put your napkin on your lap.
This went on. So Tommy had his room done like once a day. I had my room done about 8 times a day. If I left a Q-tip out, it would be polished, cleaned, put apart.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had an incident on the boat, and it was nothing wrong with the people on the boat. But at the end of the boat was a glass wall with sliding door.
Yes, it could be open or it could be closed.
Yeah. And it was a very sunny day, and they had a coffee machine and stuff on this side. And then on the other side of this glass door were a few people sitting around a table. So I got a cappuccino. I thought, oh, it's such a beautiful day. I'm going to go outside. And I didn't see the door. I thought I was just walking. So I hit the door. Now, this is tempered glass.
And I'd like to say that it was the morning and it was with coffee. It was not the
No,
evening,
it was not a martini.
Gin and tonic.
Marion's gin and tonics. I mean, were amazing. Anyway, made with love. Anyway, so as I got to the door, I hit it, slap on the side of my face, and really I really felt quite hurt. But I didn't break the glass because it's shatterproof glass or something. Yes. But the coffee, I had a white shirt on, and
of course.
I was covered in coffee.
And you scalded your business.
And I was pissed off because there was another guest standing next to me, an older gentleman, he's now at the bottom of the Danube, who burst out laughing. And I was, first of all,
rude.
I understand why people laugh when somebody falls and stuff.
It's
That's understandable. Awkward laughter.
Yeah.
But it was also, I then turned around to him and said, you think that's funny? Like, whatever. But he didn't then say, oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah, there was no follow-up.
There was no follow-up.
Can I help you?
No, and so he was a bit of a dick. Anyway, but coming in slow motion, running down the entire length of this thing was Marion, carrying baskets of ice. And I think if I'd have let him, he would have lifted me up high in the air and run back to the cabin.
Just like Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston in The Bodyguard. It would have been the same thing.
It was so it was worth it. And then, he led me down and he put ice on my face. And he was in tears. He was so worried. He was
devoted to you.
Anyway, so that for me, Marion, thank you, Marion. I hope you're listening to this one day.
Oh, he was amazing.
And because he'd watched all my shows.
He really made the cruise for you.
Yeah, he did.
He really
did.
was.
Like we'd go to the bar and before I'd even pursed my lips, the drink was there that Marion had made. He wouldn't let the barman make it. He wouldn't let anybody. And then when I took my shirt off, not in front of him, but I took completely covered in like coffee. A double espresso cappuccino, like really strong coffee. I still, Marion, do you think they'd wash it for me? I'll do it. No,
he did it himself.
He did it himself. Yeah,
he did it himself.
Yeah. We're not sending this to housekeeping. I will do it, and it was perfect. It all came out.
Well, and there was another night when we had the gala dinner. Where you asked him to iron your dress. And you said, can you give this to housekeeping, please? And ask them to iron it. And he said,
Miss Debbie, housekeeping will never touch your thing. Anyway, so for me, it was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I've never had that in my life.
I feel bad for Hans because now she's had her own butler. And now it's just Hans, doing his best, doing his level best.
Hans, when I raise my pinky, that means you need to go and get me a coffee. He's like,
and bring you a Bellini with caviar.
Oh yeah, one night
he kept bringing you Bellinis with caviar.
I did,
and chocolate covered strawberries and little bits of lobster, lovely tender lobster for you.
Well, one night because there is a lot of food, I said to Tommy, I don't want to do the dinner. It's one of these 10 courses. I just can't do it. So Marion taps on the door and he says, "But are you ill? Do you not want to go for the dinner?" I said, I've had so much food. I'm absolutely fine. I'm just going to work a bit in here.
Yeah.
Knock, knock, tablecloth arrives. Yeah. Bellini's arrived. Then he comes and he says, I have to tell you, they're having lobster to be. Could I bring you a smidgen? So the lobster. So basically I had the same meal in my room.
Well, a little less of it. Because, you did know that you didn't want a lot. But he was amazing. My butler was also amazing. His name was Dimitri. I did not see him as often.
No, once, I think, on the boat. Anyway, so then we had a funny podcast a few weeks ago, and we've had a few notes about this because when we did this contract to do this ages ago,
we talked about this.
We talked about it on the podcast. I'd said to the agent, I don't mind what flight I go on. You book me on anything. There's loads of these small flights in Europe, because it's not very far. Yeah. I said, but the only airline I will not go on, I'm really sorry, is Wizz Air.
Yeah. Consistently voted like one of the top 2
worst airline in the world consistently.
So I should say bottom 2.
So I booked Tommy's flight. He went on to Prague to have a look around, and I booked 2 days later Tommy's flight to come to Rome so he could get to the retreat.
Yes.
And I booked him on Wizz Air.
So and you got caught because Chris asked me, my manager who arranged this for both of us, asked me if I had my flights booked and everything with Debbie just to double check and put it on my itinerary. And I said, yes, she's booked me on Wizz Air. And he said, what? And I said, she's booked me on a Wizz Air flight from Prague directly to Rome. And he said,
what airline's
she
called Wizz?
told me that was the only airline that she would not fly. But it was also, in your defense, I want to say this in your defense, it was the only direct flight that was.
And it wasn't bad.
That's the crazy thing.
No problems. You arrived on time. You had excess luggage. They didn't charge you.
You had terrified me about it, and I was so worried about it. And I thought my luggage will never arrive. The flight will be canceled. The plane will be delayed. All the things that could go wrong will go wrong, and they did not. I arrived. I was checked in quickly. I went straight through security. My bags were checked through. Everything arrived on the carousel in Rome. It couldn't have been better.
But on the other hand, I go on the more expensive plane, which is Lufthansa.
Yes,
I hope
in business class.
Lufthansa in business. I hope you're listening to this. So I go from Nuremberg to Frankfurt. And this is what happened. So I arrive at Nuremberg Airport. Guess who's sitting next to me? The not very nice man.
The gentleman who
thought it was hilarious that I walked through a plate glass window. Anyway, so he said, I guess he's sitting next to me. And people were going on to other flights. So Frankfurt is a hub,
yes, a huge hub, yes.
Huge hub. And a lot of people from North America are arriving tired, getting their connection into Florence. I was going into Florence. So I get on the plane. It's full of children and families, and it seems to be a lot of Americans. Anyway, we're coming into Florence. We're literally coming down over Florence Airport. And the pilot comes on and he says, good evening, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful flight. We will not be landing in Florence. We'll be landing in Genoa. Have a wonderful holiday. Auf Wiedersehen. And I'm having a meltdown. And nobody on the plane reacted. And I'm looking around at people, and because they don't know where Genoa is, they do not know that this is a disaster, and it's already evening.
And then someone asked
you, and then a woman from Michigan comes and sits next to me, and she says, sorry, excuse me, but you look terribly intelligent.
He did not say that.
She said, excuse me, but where is Genoa? I said, it was basically in France. She said, but...
Which... I later found out it is.
It is.
It's right next to
on
France.
the border. So she says, well, how far is it from Florence? And I said, well, it's about a 4-hour drive minimum. So she, well, what do we do? I said, they've said nothing, So then somebody went and asked the flight attendant, who said, land staff will look after you. So we get off in Genoa. The airport is closed. So nobody can get the luggage off. So 2 hours later, they bring in some staff. The luggage arrives, except mine, right? So I have no luggage.
No luggage?
No luggage at all. So all my clothes for the retreat.
And you are 4.5 hours from home.
4.5 hours. So my wonderful husband, who'd come to Florence to pick me up, which is only an hour away from our house, now is driving all the way up.
Florence to Genoa.
Yeah, all the way up the Italian coast to get me. And so
prince of a person.
Yes.
He is the best.
And you called me in the airport, and what was the noise like?
Oh my God, the kids were screaming. It was bedlam.
It was bedlam because...
And I felt bad because I was sitting in a beautiful restaurant in Prague overlooking the famous Charles Bridge with a martini in front of me and a beautiful meal.
Thank you, because the airport was shut.
F you.
You could not get anything. There was no staff. Yeah. My luggage has not arrived.
I felt terrible.
And we were told a bus would come. So I don't mind because I have a husband coming, but it's a long night. So, yeah. And so there's a young couple sitting next to me and they said, do you think this bus will come? I said, no, they're not going to send a bus. It's now 9:00 at night. Yeah. There will be no buses.
No.
And there were a couple of dodgy looking guys walking around because Genoa is a port, walking around saying, that they had a cab and they would take people. And I said, to be quite honest, I would take the risk and I would get in that taxi.
You did not.
I did.
That.
I said, you're going to be here all night. So
are those people dead now?
Probably. So I call these guys over and in my pidgin Italian, I asked them how much it would cost to go to Genoa, and they said €500, which is about $800. And it's right. It's about 400 anyway. So they said, "Oh my God, that's a whole budget for the holiday." And I said, "Well, personally, I don't think they'll do anything in the morning, and you'll be sleeping on this floor." And
which happens.
So they said, "Okay, we'll use all our holiday money," and they left. 30 seconds later, I saw them drive away, and 2 women arrive finally from Lufthansa and say, "There is no bus, but we are sending taxis for everybody." And it was free. So these people had to pay. Anyway, they did. So as my old man arrived, all these cabs started coming, and hundreds of them. It took them, and people just crammed into the taxis. And then they had a over 4-hour drive. So it was a disaster. And I got my luggage 6 days later.
What? Yes, you did.
And Hans had to go to Florence.
Hans drove to Florence. I mean, he is a prince of a man.
Yeah. So if anybody is listening from Lufthansa, please lose your luggage and have a look at the luggage where you have to fill in. Because how else do I fill in the form? I'm not in the... So I said, "But I'm not in Florence. You've sent me to Genoa." "Oh, well, that's all closed." Florence is closed too now. So how do I claim my luggage online? Their online site, honestly, I could design it better than that. Anyway, it was a nightmare. So I know people's travel stories are dreadful, but let's not put that off travel.
Lufthansa, this is your opportunity to make it up to Miss Debbie.
Yeah, I want to trip around the world. Yeah, with Marion.
That's what I was getting at.
So I think, when I've actually had people say, there's too many hassles with travel. I don't want to travel. But the good outweighs it.
It is really worth it. I will say that to the team at Scenic, we had such a wonderful experience.
We met lovely people. Huh?
The chef on board, Gabor,
oh my God,
was such a passionate person about food. He would get on his bicycle at each individual stop along the river and go into the towns where he knew people who could give him fresh food from farms. And then that would find its way into our dinner every night. I mean, he was really exceptional.
He was fantastic. And also I was blown away about how many people came alone.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a lovely, like our retreats here in Tuscany are designed so people can come by themselves.
Same thing, yes.
Sometimes you don't have anybody.
You feel safe, you really do.
So it wasn't cruisy. It was actually quite cozy. And
if you're a woman traveling alone,
or a guy.
Yeah, but especially with women, there are often concerns about safety when traveling alone. And the nice thing about being
they looked after you. They really looked.
It really did, and you were never alone.
Yeah.
You really weren't ever alone. You were always with other cruisers. You were always with staff. You were safe at nighttime with security and everything on the boats, even when we were docked. It was it's a great way for a single gal or a person who's been, a widow to go and see these amazing places in Europe in total comfort and safety. Like, it's great.
And what was kind of nice, and we see this at the retreats, after a couple of days, of course, the first day you're a bit shy, but then people start to fold into each other.
Were you a bit shy, Debbie?
No, I'm shy. I'm quite a shy person. I'm an introvert. I am such an introvert. I am
not.
Anyway, but you saw people create. It's a bit like first day at school. People were like, you start to find people you like. And we met 2 guys from LA.
Yeah, we loved the guys from LA.
They were really great. And they collected kind of 1950s furniture. And so we sat there talking about markets and where to buy all this stuff. And I think it's lovely.
We met cool people. We did.
And to me,
we ate well.
And that's really what is, to me, the most interesting. I mean, some people travel for the food, the architecture, the beaches. Yeah. But for me, it's the people you meet, and I love that. I really.
When we say thank you to Scenic, we don't mean that as like this is supposed to be some sort of advert. We actually really did have a lovely time.
Yeah,
we just really genuinely wanted to give that back and say thank you.
Yeah, and Marion.
I
will marry you,
dear Marion. Yeah. I mean, really, I feel like the next time I come to visit you here in Tuscany, Marion's going to be living in a little cottage that you built for him, adjacent to the villa.
Yeah, but and also everybody says good morning to you. Everybody says, and it wasn't fake, was it?
No, they were genuinely thrilled to have us.
Yeah, and not just us. We were like the kind of celebrities on the boat, and we did some speeches and we chatted to everybody. But they were like, I watched them because I thought, well, okay, you can put it on with us, but actually.
Every guest.
They were with every guest. And they knew everybody's name. And it was really good. I liked it.
Let's do it again. Where do you want to go next? What river?
A river. You know where I would love to go is Fiji.
Oh, well, Fiji's not on a river, but Scenic goes to Fiji.
I know.
They're doing a trip with Jan Arden.
Really? Maybe. Jan, don't go. I want to go. Because I did have a bit of a phobia about it, and now I quite like it. I would never do one of those huge ones, but I quite like that.
Yeah, the big ones are like a city on the water, which is a very different experience. And you're right in that the river cruise thing it feels so intimate and smaller.
And also they go the other way, which I find fascinating. So they go towards, what is it, the Black Sea or the Red Sea? Black Sea, yeah? I
also want to say I felt really great about being in Eastern Europe. I think
because it's all opening up now.
Well, and it's really suffered because of the proximity of the war with Ukraine and Russia. And I think it's really important to mention that these countries that are adjacent to that area, which of course both of us
Albania,
wish that would end.
Poland.
My God, please let it end. But the countries that are adjacent to that, where our cruise actually happened, are really suffering in terms of tourist dollars. And I felt very safe.
But they were never really huge tourist destinations. But it's starting to open up. And Romania is becoming, Albania is becoming. Yeah,
like you go around to these incredibly beautiful
so
sites,
unspoiled.
Not as many people.
No.
It's beautiful. Vienna is as beautiful as any place I've ever been. Paris, whatever, totally comparable. But I would say half the number of people that you would encounter.
I think Vienna can be very, very busy. But I think, now they're pushing places like Romania and Albania, which has apparently some of the best beaches in the world.
This is what I've heard.
And it's so cheap.
And nobody knows.
And
I think that they are really,
But what I'm saying is the boat goes the other direction. It goes down to the Black Sea.
Yeah.
Is it the Black Sea or the Red Sea?
It's black.
Okay, it's got waves.
Yeah, the Red Sea is down near Africa, I think.
Okay, so the Black Sea, and it's a great way if you're not a backpacker and you're not that adventurous or you're a bit nervous. This is a good way to actually see something.
Yeah, see a ton.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's our travel story.
It's a wrap on our recap.
Yeah. So yes, go and have that lovely chocolate cake in the Sasha Hotel. Go to the library. Go to the Rose Garden. Don't swing on the branches. Really get out of your comfort zone and
you got a little bit
see the world.
I wouldn't say you were converted.
Yeah.
Find the Trust Me podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, review, leave us a voice note at thetrustmepod.com or at thetrustmepod on Instagram.
This podcast is distributed by the Women in Media Podcast Network. Find out more at womeninmedia.network.